What if I told you that everything happening in the world today, wars, global control, moral collapse, unrestrained technology, was clearly seen by a man who lived more than 2,500 years ago? Sounds like an exaggeration. Well, know this. What Daniel saw is exactly the world we live in today. And we're not talking about crazy theories or mystical interpretations. We're talking about biblical prophecy, detailed, precise, and incredibly current. While most people are distracted by social media and fleeting headlines, there's an invisible narrative shaping the backstage of humanity. Daniel, a captive in Babylon, received visions that would only make sense in the time of the end. He saw empires rising, oppressive systems, persecution of the righteous, and even a time of unprecedented distress. He didn't understand it all, but we do now, because we're living inside the very scenario he described. Do you know why this matters? Because ignoring the signs today is like walking blindfolded toward a cliff. Daniel's prophecies aren't just a warning, they are a survival map for navigating spiritual chaos. And the question that remains is, are you prepared to recognize these signs? Or will you keep believing this is all just coincidence? This video is for those who already feel that the world is different and want to understand why. It's for those who sense that something big is about to happen and want to take their spiritual position before it's too late. Because yes, what Daniel saw is the world we live in today, and those who have eyes to see will see. Daniel, still a young man, saw monsters rising out of the sea, creatures so strange and terrifying that today anyone would call them symbolic nightmares. But it wasn't just a dream. Each beast represented an empire. Babylon as a lion, Medo-Persia as a bear, Greece as a leopard, and Rome as the dreadful beast. Now take a deep breath. The last beast is still alive. Have you noticed how the global system seems manipulated by forces we can't see? That has everything to do with what Daniel described. Did the last empire, Rome, fall? Yes, but its essence, political control, centralized power, disguised persecution, never completely disappeared. Just look at international alliances, global organizations, and economic blocs that try to govern the planet under a so-called order. It's like iron mixed with clay. It looks strong, but it's fragile. Today, what we see is a desperate attempt to revive that system. And it's no coincidence. Want to see it in practice? Look at decisions made by the UN, NATO, and even local governments that follow international agendas as if they had no will of their own. And here's the question: is this freedom or a setup for something bigger? Daniel had already pointed out that this structure would return. The truth is, we're not just watching politics, we're watching prophecy take shape. But hold on, this is just the beginning. Because the most frightening thing isn't the empire, it's what rises from within it. A small horn, arrogant, voracious, and willing to challenge God himself. And that, my friend, is what we'll explore in the next point. Among Daniel's visions, something peculiar arises, a little horn that emerges among others, quietly, but with devastating impact. It doesn't shout. It whispers, manipulates, topples. It uproots 3 kingdoms and stands out with pride, blasphemy, and boldness to confront the Most High. Today, that spirit manifests behind the scenes of power, in speeches that mock God, and in laws that ignore eternal principles. Have you noticed how being a Christian has almost become an act of rebellion against the system? The modern world is increasingly comfortable with spiritual arrogance. Political and ideological leaders present themselves as saviors, defying biblical principles in the name of progress, and inclusion. It's no longer subtle, it's blatant. Some nations pass laws that directly oppose Christian morality, while public figures mock scripture in prime time. The little horn has become culture, and culture, in turn, has become a battlefield. This persecution, though disguised as tolerance, is real. In many countries, talking about Jesus is a crime. In others, you can, as long as you don't confront the system. And here's the detail few perceive. The Antichrist doesn't arrive like a villain in a movie. He presents himself as the solution. That's why spiritual discernment today is more valuable than gold. Those who aren't awake will be swallowed by the system, smiling. And what's even more disturbing is that this spirit doesn't just operate in politics or media. It invades schools, social media, and even some churches. It changes the narrative, distorts the word, and sets the stage for something even more dangerous: a direct attempt to rewrite what God has established as eternal. The prophet Daniel warned us that this little horn would try to change times and laws. Sounds symbolic? Don't be fooled. We're living this right under our noses. The redefinition of morality didn't start yesterday. What was once sin is now a right. What was once sacred is now ridiculed. And look, all of this is happening while most people are distracted, thinking it's just social evolution. Have you noticed how values that lasted for millennia are being deconstructed at a frightening speed? The concept of family, the meaning of male and female, the value of life, everything is being reprogrammed. The current generation lives in a society where truth is relative, and questioning these changes can make you a public enemy. It's not just opinion, it's a cultural war with deep spiritual implications. And it doesn't stop there. Some countries are even discussing the elimination of Christian holidays. Religious symbols are being removed from public spaces. The attempt to separate state and faith has shifted from balance to a full-blown effort to erase spiritual roots. If you have children, nephews, or work with youth, you've probably felt it. The new generations are growing up disconnected from biblical truth and hyper-connected to a fabricated reality. It's exactly as Daniel said. The spirit of the Antichrist doesn't just speak loudly, it writes the rules. But if you think that's already too much, wait until you see what's happening beneath our skin. Quite literally. Daniel was told something curious. Seal these words until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. If anything defines our age, it's exactly that. We live in the age of information, or rather, information overload. In just seconds, we know what's happening on the other side of the world. But ironically, we've never been more confused. We know everything, except what truly matters. Technology is advancing like a runaway train. Artificial intelligence, implantable chips, artificial neural networks, facial recognition control, it all sounds incredible. But have you considered how this can also be used to control, monitor, and shape behavior? Daniel didn't know the word internet, but he saw what it would represent. And more, he saw that it would be part of the end-time scenario. Today, people are running to and fro, not just physically, but virtually. Cheap international flights, apps that teleport your mind anywhere. We have people who know all about politics, economics, science, but don't know how to pray or deal with the emptiness in their soul. Knowledge has increased, but wisdom has diminished. There's a spiritual blindness in the midst of a flood of data. And perhaps the scariest part is this: we're getting used to it. What used to be science fiction is now daily life. But behind this acceleration, there's something more. Something we can't see with our eyes, but is waging war behind the scenes of the world. And as Daniel discovered, those battles aren't between ordinary humans. Few people know, but Daniel spent 21 days praying and fasting, waiting for a response from heaven. The angel only arrived after 3 weeks because he was held back by a being called the Prince of Persia. This wasn't a human king, it was a spiritual entity. Yes, there is an invisible war happening right above our heads. And if this was already true in Daniel's time, imagine now, with the world in a frenzy. This spiritual war explains much of what seems senseless. Political crises that appear out of nowhere, absurd court rulings, economic chaos hitting millions. Not everything is just poor leadership. Behind leaders and systems, there are forces influencing, blinding, and pushing the world toward collapse. It happened with past empires. It's happening again. And only those who see beyond the obvious will overcome. Want a practical example? Try maintaining a prayer routine. Notice how distractions arise: sudden fatigue, unexpected discouragement. Coincidence? Not at all. This is a reflection of a real battle. That's why watching and praying isn't just religious advice, it's a survival strategy. Being spiritually active today is more essential than being online. The battle is in the air, and our weapon is the spirit. Daniel shows us that even when facing princes of darkness, persistence in faith brings answers. But this war is far from over, because as these invisible conflicts intensify, the world steps into an even darker phase, a time he himself described as the greatest distress in all of history. Daniel was told, "There will be a time of distress such as never was." That's way too strong to ignore. He didn't say similar or almost like, he was clear, never before seen. Look around. Wars breaking out in multiple regions, pandemics destabilizing entire nations, earthquakes, moral collapse, governments in crisis. Sounds like an apocalyptic movie, but it's just the news. And all of it is pushing the world into that prophesied time. This time of distress isn't just political or physical, it's emotional and spiritual. People are falling apart inside. Anxiety, depression, suicide, all at alarming levels. Families breaking down, friendships ending, churches divided. You can feel it. Something is about to erupt. And that's not just a feeling. Daniel saw it, and we're beginning to live it. But is the majority even noticing? The most dangerous thing is how chaos is becoming normal. Wars become mere numbers. Tragedies become memes. Other people's suffering turns into entertainment. When that happens, something already died inside. It's a clear sign we've entered a different time, where love grows cold, just as Jesus also warned. This distress isn't just global, it's personal. Each of us feels deep down that something has shifted. And while the world tries to deal with this through political or technological solutions, there is an answer not found in the news or in boardroom decisions. A response that starts in the spirit, travels through the heart, and changes the course of one's life. Because if Daniel saw the end, we were called to stand firm and endure. And don't worry, we're just getting to that part. Now that you've seen all this with your own eyes, tell me, do you still think the book of Daniel is just an old story? Or can you see that what he saw is unfolding right in front of us? In every global decision, every crisis, every cultural shift, the truth is, Daniel saw our time with prophetic precision. The Bible is being fulfilled, point by point. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's prophetic reality. And the most important question you need to answer now is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you ignore it and keep living as if nothing is happening? Or will you wake up and prepare spiritually while there's still time.